Turned her passion into purpose, work begun. Co-author of a movement, not-for-profits game, teaching kids that self-belief can ease the pain. Every child deserves to face their fears with measured thinking, not just tears. She's planting seeds of strength.
Oh, Paulette, we're finally
Hello,
live.
hello.
We're
So
finally
sorry
live.
we're delayed. We've been having technical issues, but we're through. We got there in the
Yes.
end. So many
That's what my
apologies.
computer is. Yes. There you go, Ray. You're here. You know, these things
Yes, I
happen.
am.
Events,
I'm
even
here.
in real life, things happen. Look, I move myself closer. Now, my computer is right in my face now, which is a bit different, a bit weird.
So hello, everybody, and thank you so much for coming. If anyone was at the Children's Anxieties Room on last Tuesday, you'd be aware that it was a very, very, very good room about trying to understand the issues of boundaries from a child's perspective. But while you're trying to understand them from a child's perspective, we then got into talking about them from an adult's perspective too. And so that meant that it was a really important conversation, that we suddenly realized that with adults, if we don't set boundaries for ourselves and each other, then how the heck do we expect to set them for our kids? So that's the conversation today. It's a very important one. It can be a little bit personal. So, please don't be offended, because these are always suggestions and ideas. They're never telling you what to do. It's just, this is what we think, what the books say, what the therapy corner would tell you, and really about a bit of common sense as well. So, that's the perspective I'm coming from, and I really hope that that's how it's taken. Before I start, I'm going to say hi to Annie, and sorry, Annie's having a bit of a mare in Margate. That's a good one, isn't it? A mare in Margate. So Annie's having a mare in Margate. Tell me about your mare in Margate.
No, it's all right. It's powerfully coarse, as you know, Paulette. It's powerful. I think decorating, getting the house transformed, it feels daunting until it's done, right? And like I always say to my friends, I think when it comes to decorating, building, and construction in general, everything looks bad until the very last moment, until you say, "I'm done." Everything looks as if it's never going to be done. But bit by bit, I say, no, I'm having a decent day. I always do, right?
Good.
I do have to go and cook sometime.
Well, at some point you can eat. You're allowed. I must admit,
Yeah.
Charles has insisted on me eating before the room started. So for me, I'd like to sort of put the room into a few little blocks if we can. And then we'll just sort of treat them as building blocks and try to build on the concept of what boundaries are, how boundaries work, how they don't work, and how we can then use them in our everyday life to make our lives easier. Before I start, I'm going to tell you something I think is quite interesting. I asked Charles, I just said to him, before you go out, can I ask you a quick question? He said, what's that? I said, in a marriage, what does a boundary mean to you? And he said, gosh, well, I think it's about sitting down and going through all the things that you want from each other and trying to work out where you agree and where you disagree, and working out whether or not you can work with the other person's boundaries, what their levels are, whatever it is that you want to accept. And being an accountant, financial boundaries are a major issue for Charles, with a woman who likes to spend money. So he said if he'd known, but then I also used to earn it, so he couldn't really say anything. We both earn it, but the point was, he met me when I was already fairly successful, and so consequently, and he was successful in his own right. So we were sort of two people at an older age. Like I was my early 30s, so it meant that I'd done it, been it, seen it, and done all the things wrong. I'd made all the mistakes. I really had made every mistake. I'd let a man hit me, which I promised I'd never ever let happen again. I'd let somebody take a lot of money off me, which I promised I'd never let happen again. I didn't have any sort of pre-living together arrangement. So when we decided to split, or I decided to split, he went to his solicitors and said, I put £500 a month into an account, which we used to call our holiday account. Can I say that was for bills? And then am I due any money from the house? And the guy was like, did you actually pay any of the bills? He was like, no, she pays for everything. And the guy was like, yeah, but we can say that wasn't a holiday. We can say that was. And I said, I can actually prove the statement says, and that it hasn't been changed. It says holiday account. And we both put £500 a month into the holiday account so we could have these nice lavish holidays. And it was like, I got absolutely shafted in court. And you know what my solicitor said to me at the end of it? It's nice to see a woman get done every now and again. I was like, and you think you're going to get paid? Because men are always getting shafted, apparently. And I was like, wow, okay, that's another boundary. So there was lots of little things that have happened to me personally that I could say I would never accept again. But if they haven't happened to you, how do you know? And when we talked about our relationship, I said, I want to be part of a team, but I'm also very much my own person. And so I'm like, don't try to cage me because I'll become a caged animal. And anyone who knows me knows that's true. And I think that's a boundary in itself. I'm an animal, if you like, but you put a cage around me, I become a different kind of animal. I feel like I'm being caged in, I want to get out. And so it's about trying to understand the concept of a boundary. And I like to think of it as simply a line. Okay? If you imagine a photograph, a boundary could just be the frame. So if you imagine a framework around a problem or a situation, that is how I teach and train boundaries. And I try to say to people, and I've always done this, find the middle ground. There's always a middle ground. And I only know that now because I'm so old. I didn't know that when I was in my 20s. I certainly didn't know when I was younger. And I think that there's an awful lot of millennials who would understand more. There's an awful lot of Gen Zs who haven't got a clue what I'm talking about because they've had no boundaries. And this is back to the children's anxieties room where we talked about the screens, the attention spans, the teachers screaming that they're all leaving. 30% of teachers are leaving their teaching jobs in their second year after they're newly qualified. So they have a year with their NQT, then they do 1 year and then they leave because they cannot work with the kids because their attention span has been narrowed to a short, which is what, 45 seconds or a minute or 3 minutes or whatever it is. And they're trying to teach a lesson and hold their attention while they've got two guys fighting over in that corner. Someone's stolen somebody's ruler and they're having a punch up in that corner, and they're trying to keep the whole class, right? And the classes are now 36, 37 in a class. And Charles gave up accountancy and became a teacher. And he said 37, 36, 37 in a class of highly intelligent children who are tuned into the subject matter, no problem. 36, 37 kids who don't want to be in maths, who hate maths, you're going to have a full-blown nightmare. So I would like to try and explain how we really understand this boundary, this framework around a situation or a problem. So if I wrote some notes down, confusing boundaries with control. I think that is so important. Okay. Confusing boundaries with control, meaning that somebody's being coercively controlling of you, that is not a boundary. That is somebody who is stepping over that line. They're stepping outside of the line that is acceptable. They are becoming coercively controlling. That is not a boundary. That is a boundary for you to say, that's not happening. Now, unfortunately, that often comes in domestic violence situations as well. And it becomes a very sticky situation. But I just want to mention that there is a big difference with boundaries. Never confuse a boundary with control. They're two different things. Boundaries are about what I call what I will and what I won't do. Or control is about what you will do or you must do. Very different. So it's important that we always keep that in mind. And if we feel like that's ever happening, whether it's at work or at home or with your kids or what, if you see that kind of behavior, call it out. Because if you don't call it out, it gets worse. Narcissism is in all of us. We are all have narcissistic tendencies. Our egos sometimes get the better of us. And so that's where we start saying, you will do this and you must do that and you should do this. And actually, it's all about the I wills and the I won'ts. And I'm saying I won't do that. And therefore, that's going to cause a row.
Hold on,
That person is
can
trying
I
to
pause you
control
there?
you. Yeah.
Can I pause you there?
Yeah.
I don't. I have no such intentions. Like, I have no feelings like that at all. I don't want to control anyone. Not even my kids at
Maybe
all.
not
And
now,
I've
but
got
maybe
my
as a younger
boundaries.
person, you might have done. It's in all of
Yeah,
us.
because I was foolish then.
Yeah,
But there's no
exactly.
joy. So,
No,
but
there's no
now
joy in it. Of course
I,
not.
I'm saying I got my red lines. Of course I have. I think we all do. And I would say that this conversation is about saying no to the things that make us feel burdened.
A weight.
Things I would not want to do, as you
If
say,
there's
as
a
you said
weight,
earlier.
yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah,
good. Yeah,
it's rather unpleasant.
yeah.
It can be what people say, it can be what people want you to do, where they want you to be, how they want you to do it. But
How they
deep down
want you to
saying,
look. It can be all
yes,
kinds of stuff.
and
Yeah.
be. Yeah, not for sure. But say, I just had to stop, say I had, even my take, and you mentioned the pets earlier, right? Now, I do tell my dogs every so often that their life is full of prisons, cells. They don't say it. They think, I want to go outside. I'll be free outside. I'm like, you won't. Because you can't, because when you go outside, you have fences. You can't go beyond our house, can you? Yeah. I want to go to the park. I'll be free in the park. I'm like, no, you won't. When you go to the park, there's fences. I control where you go in the park. You can't just run off. Okay, no, I'm saying, okay, so I want to go to a different town. I'll take you, but there's still prisons. There's still boundaries everywhere. Life's all about boundaries. I think life's all about boundaries. Wherever we go, there's boundaries.
Mm.
I think it's whether we're willing to set our boundaries and state, here are my red lines. Here's the things
My
that
boundary is voice. If I hear a
go.
change in the voice, it's a tone of voice. I have a thing, I can't bear being shouted at. It goes back to childhood. I know what the trauma is, I know where it is. I've worked on it, I've done the work. But if someone is shouting, I want to stop them, and I get involved when I shouldn't get involved, and I stop fights and stand between men and things. And Charles is like having a nightmare trying to pull me away. Um, the thing that I don't like shouting, I really don't. And to me, shouting is a sign of aggression, and aggression comes the hitting. So in my head, it's all the things that go back to home, to my traumas. So again, if the voices are raised, So if Ben's voice went up, if Ben went, but I want to, and I go, room, and he would just go up to his room. And then later come down, he'd apologize and say, I'm sorry, I raised my voice. Fine. That young man will never raise his voice to a woman because he knows that it makes women uncomfortable. He would not allow a man around him to raise his voice without saying, excuse me, sir, because he couldn't bear it, because he's been around me and seen what it's done to me. So it's about your teachings also come from your own traumas, your own histories, your own lives. Everything that goes on inside of you has a knock-on effect on what you portray as acceptable or not. So again, like I said, if you say, I'm not going to continue this conversation while you're yelling at me, or I'm not going to continue this conversation while you have a raised voice. We'll talk about it later when you calm down. That's man, adult, child, female, friend, whoever. It doesn't matter who it is, but you have to have that line. The line is, I don't accept having raised voices. In the office, if people got a bit loud and leery, laughing and joking, fine. But if I heard someone's tone change, I'd be up and out my chair and across that office quicker than anyone knew what happened. And I'd be, is there a problem here? Well, it doesn't involve you. Why have you suddenly stuck your nose in? Because I heard raised voices, and we don't have raised voices. So should we take it into the office? And they'd be like, come on, we're just having a bit of an argument over something. Fine. But you don't do it in the office. Wait till it's break time or lunchtime. Take it outside, right? You don't do it in the office because we don't do it in the office. We had the best fun, the most fun, the happiest office ever because nobody ever raised their voice. Everybody understood the line. And I set that tone by being me. And people emulated me and said, yeah, Paulette's happy. We have a great time. We all go out. We do this, we do that. We have such a great social life. Why would we want to rock the boat? So if there ever was a situation where there was a problem, it was dealt with outside the office, often across the road in the pub car park or wherever. But it was dealt with, and it was normally just people getting angry with each other over not doing something. They deal with it, apologize or whatever, come back into the office, everyone's hands are shake, everything done, dealt with, finished. I would never need to mention it again, and it wouldn't be mentioned again. That is a tone that you set in your family. If you do not have raised voices in your family, then you're unlikely to have children that will go out there and have those raised voices. I have children that come to me in a counseling therapy role that is for free, so I don't charge because I'm not certified anymore, who are living in households where the F word, the C word, the words that I don't even want to speak about are used in almost every sentence. This child goes into school and uses those words and gets into trouble. They don't even realize they're swear words. They're just words, right? And then they use them in the playground and they say them to other kids, and then other kids go home and say them and they get into trouble. And then the teachers get told off, and then the parents come into school and everyone's grumpy. And it's all because of this one kid who's got a family that are using all these swear words at home that she's now using in the playground, and they're all emulating her. And she's in my care now saying to me, I don't know what I've done wrong. And I'm having to say to her, there are different words for the word you're using. How about we just say idiot instead of, I won't say it, but something head, right? Meaning rhymes with Nick, rhymes with Nick head. So rather than calling somebody a Nick head, you say to somebody, you're just an idiot, leave me alone. That's not going to get you into trouble. And other parents aren't going to be coming up to the school because you called somebody an idiot. But if you call them that other word or put an F in front of it, an F word, and then that other word, you're going to get yourself into so much trouble. But she looked at me and she was like, they're only letters. I was like, I know they're only letters, but when letters get put together, we as the humans have decided that they are bad words. And if they're bad words, they shouldn't be used. So there's a boundary about what is acceptable and not acceptable at school, and swearing is not allowed. So think of new words. So we were looking up silly words like, bombadil. You're a stinking bombadil. That sounds quite good, doesn't it? Yeah, I'll say that. It's almost like Shakespearean Midsummer Night's Dream type stuff. We're making up words for swear words that are still letters, but if she says those, she's going to feel like that's quite a bad word. I'll feel better about myself. Now, she has autism and she has ADHD and a few other bits and pieces that we could add to this that are adding to her stresses. But if I can just control the swearing, that means she's not in trouble every day. Because at the moment, she's in the head's office, the deputy head's office, every single day. Last week, she spent the whole week filing in the office because the teachers weren't allowed to teach her because the parents are kicked off. They didn't want her in the class. So instead of sending her home, back into the home environment, which is very hostile, they said she could do work experience in the office. She's 12. She's like in year 6 at junior school. 12 years old. She's doing filing because they're just keeping an eye on her. So she's safe. But it's not a social worker situation. She's clean. She's fed. She's looked after. It's just that the language at home is atrocious. The boundary of the school is you do not swear at school. That's it. She steps over that line 50 times a day. And I tried to explain to her, we made it into like a little electric fence, that every time she touches it, it goes buzz and gives her a little electric shock. How would that make her feel? And she went, yeah, it would hurt, wouldn't it? I said, yeah, and if you said the long swear word, you'd have to stand even closer to it for longer. Then I said, it might even make your hair curl. She laughed her socks off and she said, right, that's a bombadil, that is. And I was like, right, we'll just try it. Last week she had, I think, 4 days, three days clean sheet. One day, that was a bad day. And on the Friday, we had only 2 detentions, but 2 out of 7 or 8 or 10 or whatever it was the week before. And she was laughing with me about the words she'd made up. She'd been writing down words, she'd been making them up. And she called somebody a Bostic. Now, Bostic is glue over here. It's a brand of glue. But somebody thought she called them a Bostic. They thought she'd said the rhymes with Nick word and set hold on her. But she said, I didn't. I called them a Bostic. Bostic's glue, isn't it? Yeah, but it's a bit too close. Just in case it's misheard. The boundary, that line is, the kids are waiting for her to drop a bomb, and if she drops the F bomb or whatever, they're all running, can't wait to drop her in and tell the teachers and whatever. It makes life very difficult for her. Her boundary at home now is she's trying not to swear at home because her parents swear. She swore. She's trying to be the one that doesn't swear. The other day, she called one of them something in a conversation. I think she called them a bombadil or something. And they were like, what's one of them then? And she said, I made it up. And they were like, oh, okay. Like that. I didn't tell her off, but they didn't know what it was. They were a bit kind of confused and concerned. It's not a swear word, so it's okay. The line for us, it's all very different. Us grown-ups, we swear our heads off if we want to. I'm not a great swearer, and when I do, it usually makes people go, wow. I often say, oh, F in hell, but I don't say the word. I just say effing, as in EFFIN. And everyone goes, well, you might as well say the actual word if you're going to say that. And I go, somehow it doesn't sound so bad to me. And they just laugh at me, especially Charles. But it's not about a boundary for me at home with swearing. The boundary is it's just not something I particularly like or need. I don't need it. I've got a vocabulary. I'm able to communicate. She, unfortunately, is in an environment where there are no lines. A home environment, there are no boundaries whatsoever. And she said to me, and this is an interesting one again, to kiss and cuddle in front of your child, is that acceptable? I think showing attention or affection to each other is quite nice for a child to see. That you walk hand in hand or you give each other a kiss. I'm not talking about snogging each other's face off. I just mean a kiss. Well, she said she told her parents to get a room and she got a slap. And I said, well, what were they doing? I said, oh, actually, don't tell me. I don't think it's right that you tell me. But it involves a kitchen table. I was like, okay, enough. Get into social worker time, right? It's getting to the point where this child is potentially in an unfit family, but it's not my job. That's got to be the teacher's job, and it's got to come from the school. And they've got enough evidence already. I don't need to add to it. But the point I'm making is, where's their boundaries? They don't have any. They don't have any boundaries for their children. What their child sees. They haven't thought about what the risks are of her seeing that kind of behavior. And they said it's just love. No, it's take it to the bedroom, And for her to say get a room, I thought was quite witty for a 12-year-old. But I guess my humour is getting the better of me. The point I'm making is that we as the adult need to be making boundaries for each other. And if we say, actually, getting a bit down and dirty on the kitchen table is not acceptable, especially when our kids are still up and around, I think that's a fair boundary. I think that's a bit of a red line for me. But there you go. A quick story on that note, and it's quite important because we all laugh and joke about these things, and I always like to keep it real. I was at Christmas about 21 years ago at my brother's house, and we were all sitting around the table. There were about 14, 15 of us. And Jack of Jack and Water, Jack said, I've got a tummy ache. And he started rubbing his tummy. And his nanny Anne, who was my brother's wife's mum, said, when did it hurt? When did it start hurting? He said, it was hurting in the night. And she said, oh, well, that's not good. He said, no, and I went to see mummy and daddy and they were doing their exercises. So I went back to bed. And at this point, there was bits of food shot out of each other's mouths as we all realised what that meant. That he's walked in his mum and dad's bedroom and they were doing their exercises, and my brother said, I was just giving her an early Christmas present. At which point I absolutely couldn't hold it any longer and I lost it. I burst into hysterics and the whole table, luckily, was able to laugh with us, and then it all kind of just disappeared and it was gone. But a difficult situation, I'm sure you agree, that your child walks in on you and then tells the whole table, even your old grandmother, who's quite shocked by what she's heard, but doesn't show it and laughs with us, and then tells me afterwards that she thought it was wrong on the drive home as I dropped her off. But that's an example of the real world, right? We live in a real world. The boundary is the door. He had the door shut. They were doing it behind a door. The child opened the door. It happens. I'm sure it's happened to many of you, and we won't talk about it. But the point is, the door was the boundary, right? The kitchen table and the kids walking around, no boundary. Yeah. when boundaries do slide into control, it's on an unloving kind of position, often can be seen as mean and selfish. Um, it's a loss of connection. That loss of connection is so important. For me, when you lose connection with each other, there's always a risk of one person trying to dominate another. So when you're connected and together and everything is good, then that's grand. But as soon as that connection gets lost, there is a risk of one of you trying to dominate the other. And I've seen it happen. Um, Inconsistency is absolutely a nightmare. If you set a boundary, let that boundary be the boundary. Let that be how it is going to be. Let that boundary stand in its place of this is what we've agreed on, and this is what we're going to stick to. And if 8 o'clock is bedtime for the children, 8 o'clock it is. And if there's something they really want to watch on television, we can all record stuff these days. We record it, they can watch it tomorrow. You know, finish a game. Well, it's another 5 minutes. I'm sorry. You knew 8 o'clock was the shutdown time. Mum, I promise 8:05 it will be over. I would stretch it to 8:05 to save having the argument, but I wouldn't stretch it to 8:10 or 8:20. They will push it because that's by nature who children are. Now let's do the adult scenario. We're going to be leaving at 7. Make sure we're ready to go for 7. What happens if at 7 o'clock, you're not ready to go and the taxi's outside, right? Everyone's going to get a little bit stressed about the taxi and the money and the clocking. Of over here, we start getting charged by the minute. So 7 o'clock was a boundary. It was a time we all agreed that's what time we're being picked up. So we've got to be ready. Now, Miss Goody Two Shoes here would have been ready at 10:02 because I love a boundary, right? You set me a boundary, I'm there. You tell me I've got to do it, I'll do it. And it's how it works for me. I guess it's how I'm tuned. But I've got friends who've had to let taxis go because the taxi's been waiting for half an hour. He's had to go outside, pay them, and she's still got her curlers in. And, she's sitting there curling her hair and going, I can't possibly go until I got my last curl in. And he says, well, the taxi's gone, we'll have to book another one. And the point is, I would imagine that would be quite infuriating. So if I was the gentleman or the partner in this situation who is waiting on the other person, that's quite a frustrating boundary. Yeah, time. So meeting somebody at a time, getting up for a time, being down for breakfast. How many blooming conferences have we all been on where the conference says, right, okay, it starts at 10 o'clock, so we're going to go down to breakfast at 8, right? Which is quite reasonable. Everyone down for breakfast at 8. And everyone was in the bar probably till 2, if it was the same sort of conferences I went on. If I was a speaker, maybe I'd gone to bed at 1. But if I was just attending, I would be 2 and I'd be in there with the crowd. So the point being that 8 o'clock, 6 hours, by the time you're dressed, ready, whatever, makeup, I could get down in my pajamas for all I cared. But the point is 8 o'clock is the breakfast time. Those that missed breakfast, you can who they are. Did they sleep in? Did they choose not to have any food? But breakfast was included, and it's almost rude not to come. And they missed out on all the camaraderie and the chatting and the joking that goes on at these sorts of things, I just think that, time is a huge boundary. And whether it's setting it for kids or whether it's setting it for ourselves, be aware of it. It causes a lot of upsets that are unnecessary. If the time is set to be there at a certain time, then we go with it. I mean, if you're having technical issues, you're having technical issues.
Poor
You
Let,
can't argue.
poor Let, honestly. I try and be at peace, but I can't. You know, I'm not going to agree with that.
Yeah, I know. You don't
let's
see
let's let's
time.
let's work out. No, I do time. I do any time. Yes, I like that. It makes me laugh. Anyway,
Always
it's
makes
true
me
though.
laugh.
It's true.
Anytime, yeah.
It's a thing.
It
Let's welcome
certainly
our
is.
friends. There's loads of them. So let me
Welcome
begin,
people.
and then we'll come back to to your list. Yeah, and okay, let's do. Coach K, apparently you're here, but I can't see you on my LinkedIn. So
She
I've
might
tried.
be on her own.
Yeah, but I don't know where. She's
She
not.
streams to her own YouTube.
Yeah, she might be on your LinkedIn for all I know. So I don't know. I don't know where she is. But Natalie,
Thank
thank
you for
you as well.
coming. Hello, Nat.
Yeah, and thank you for helping us with the comments as well, Natalie. Always important. So again, Sister Annie is here. So Annie.
Hey.
When I was a kid in children's home, I think I used to get fined £1, a swear word. And given that I say I only got about £3.50 pocket money a week anyway, swearing was expensive. But I
That
still swear.
boundary.
Yes, I still swear. Because I guess swearing is expressive. If I say go away, you can think what you like, right? You can think, okay, Annie is annoyed, is upset maybe. If I say if I scream, just F off, I am furious beyond furious. You know that I'm in a different place altogether mentally, right? And so that's what that is. I think swearing could be expressive, but it doesn't make it right. And there's there's a comment I saw earlier, which I think is, we'll get to it, and I'll tell you what someone said. Michael, good to see you. So how you doing? You're here. Chanda's here as well. How you doing, Chanda?
Hey.
So I'll send you the speakers link. If anyone wants to join the studio to share, then please feel free. Just put in the chat here, and I'll find a way to get the links to you for sure. So who says Natalie says you're looking well, my friend. There you go. She is, isn't she? Right. So boundaries are all parts of life. We'll need to set them and expect others. I think that's what I say. It's mutual respect. I agree. I think it's about communicating what our thing is. Dr. Vivian, yeah, you finally made it, as Kenny would say. I'm glad you're here. And I say, Vivian says, it's technically a new happy new year and a new month as well. It's definitely a new month. Oh, Coach K, we found you. And that's enough. I've actually seen you. So how you doing? I will send you the link in a second. Say Lisa, I've got a room tomorrow. Shouldn't we have a room tomorrow? No? So why is it in my diary for tomorrow then? Excellent. I'm glad. So I'm going to go and see. Who did I say? Who am I seeing tomorrow?
Cassandra.
Yeah, my memory is Paulette. It just disappeared. I can see her face. I just can remember, her name for a second. So Michael says Paulette the animal. Which animal would be most likely like you?
Ooh. Well, I'm a lion. I'm a Leo, so maybe I'm a lion. I don't know. I think I'd like to think that I'm a sort of I'm a sort of sloth in a way because I'm quite slow in my movements these days. But in another way, I feel like I'm a gazelle because I'm always jumping here and jumping there, so I'm quite gazelle-ish. But I don't know that You could really cage a gazelle. You're probably doing it in a
They
zoo,
do.
but no.
They do. They do. And I say, for animals, the world's just a lot of prisons. I know you might think you might escape one, and you find out that it's this bigger prison than that one. You know. But I think it's
Curtis, great to see you
probably
again.
for all of
Hi.
us. That's how you doing, my friend. Always glad you're here. Who else do I see? So amazing Jackie is here as well.
Hey, hi
It's a
everyone.
show tonight. I think it's a show tonight. I think. Just Jacks. So do connect
The
with
late
Jack.
one.
Yes, yes. No, it's not for you, Paulette. No, your shoes will fall off by the time we'll get
Oh yeah,
anywhere near. We'll get past midnight, right? So
exactly.
Mero says hi from across the pond.
Yeah.
Natalie's
Terrible hunger.
recommending Pat Craven to dominate the workbook and the accompanying childhood impacts of domestic abuse. So look, I think controlling people is domestic abuse. However we look at it,
I say so, yeah.
I do agree with
Yeah,
that. It's abuse full stop.
absolutely.
Even if it at work, it's abuse. And
Yep.
someone
And
chooses
I've
to.
dealt with it in both ways. In both ways. I've dealt with it personally, and I've also dealt with it in the work situation. As I said, because I can't handle that raised voice from my own personal traumas of a child, and then going into a relationship that turned difficult, and then abusive. I think that any kind of, if anybody's trying to push, let's even take politics for example. People get very aerated. I had a conversation with my in-laws, and we were talking about Brexit. This is like eons ago, 3 4 years ago it came out. Can't remember, maybe 4 years, but it was a while back, and it was all the older generation, like we called them cauliflower tops in our house for some reason because they've all got white hair. They seemed to all vote to leave, generally speaking. And then the younger generation were like, no, we need to stay. It's better for us if we stay. Keep our sovereignty, but we stay. But go and negotiate on our behalf, by all means. But everybody that I knew who voted Brexit said to leave. Said, but I didn't think we would. I just thought we were giving them a message that we weren't happy. And I said, but we've left because of what you did. And they're like, yeah, I know, but that wasn't what I thought was going to happen. And it's like, I don't know, I can cope with this conversation. I need to, you put the X in the box saying you wanted to leave. Now you're saying you actually didn't want to leave. You just wanted to have a little protest. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, why didn't you write protest and draw your own little box and tick
Yes.
that, and then that paper would have gone in the bin, But I can't say that to my in-laws. So Charles was like, Paulette, do you want to put the kettle on? We haven't got a kettle, we've got a coffee machine. But when someone says, get up, would you like to put a coffee? That's because he can see steam coming out of my ears, right? And I'm sitting there going, I'm a good daughter-in-law and I'm saying nothing. And I'm like a ventriloquist because what the dialogue going on behind my face, Charles can read, right? Paulette, do you want to go put the kettle on? Yeah, of course I will. Physically on the head. But the point is that that's another one of these boundaries. That sometimes you say, don't talk about religion, don't talk about politics, don't talk about this, don't talk about that, because they're all topics that possibly could cause friction, that could cause issues, right? And the most important part for me is don't say something that you might regret. If you think there's a chance you're going to regret what you say, then bite your tongue. I used to have no cheek because I'd bite it so many times because I didn't say what I wanted to say. Because there's two parts to Paulette. There's the Paulette that actually gets it, and there's the Paulette that goes, but I've got a really strong opinion about this topic, and I know now's not the time to voice it. That's me putting my own boundary in place, being adult enough to say, I'm not going to say what I really want to say. Hi, Leanne. Lovely to see you, Liana. Sorry. It's really important that it's Christy, woo! It's really important we remember that certain topics raise and can raise the roof, right? And so those boundaries are an art and a science. You're not wrong. But healthy boundaries.
I think
Yes,
that I agree with. I think because everyone's boundary is individual.
Yeah.
And sometimes it may not make sense to anyone apart from you. But I think for me, if something makes you feel resentful, that's
huge.
when I tend to say, okay, don't do that again. Please don't do that again, because it doesn't just upset me. It truly makes it. It's and the things that do it for me, Paulette. It's not time. It's not raising your voice. It's not swearing. I tell you what does it for me. Leaving dirty things in the sink. I will go to war in my house. Literally, I will go to war. No, you can't just walk away. Because the slave's not going to come and wash it. The slave being my wife. I'm saying, it's going to wash it then. Wash your own damn plate. I'll do it later. No, do it now. You don't do it now. So I've learned, okay, if you're not going to do it now, I'll pack the plates and put them in your room, on your chair, and they'll wait for you when you come back from school tomorrow. They'll still be there. Day after day. That's the one thing I just can't tolerate, but that's me, right? That's me. So everyone else in my house are like, oh, well, it's not that deep. My son will tell me, but it's not. To me, it's that deep, right? I just can't. But I think there was one time when my boundary was, you can't have the pets in the bedroom because they stink. Basically, they just stink. Dogs stink. The cats can do what they like because the cat's my favorite. I like my cats, right? But then one day I just decided, you know what? It's not that deep. Frankly, I don't really care. It doesn't upset me like the washing up thing. It just doesn't do. And yes, it's annoying. Yes, they stink. Yes, I'd rather not have it. But I'm not gonna have a war over. So I let it go. I'm saying that this is just this is the point that I think Coach Carey is making. The art and the science bit. Which boundaries do you choose to truly maintain, uphold? Put a stake in the ground for. I think it's just good for us to know where our red lines are.
Yeah.
And do we have to explain our red lines? I don't think we have to explain. I think you just have to.
If you know each other long enough, it's obvious. Yeah, experience should tell you what the red line is, really.
Yes, for sure. I see. Who else is here? Just the few decent comments, but let's go through some of them, right? Right. I think Curtis's point. There are things that we humans still have to manage without being told we're controlling. Yes, we do. But it's such a fine line, right? So maybe now this is hence my question just now. Do we have to explain ourselves to anyone?
On Curtis's point, okay, and he's an executive coach, so he'll know all this. But to me, you can explain there's a problem. You can explain that there needs to be a solution. You can explain that something isn't good enough, and you can do it in a calm and meaningful way. If you need to get that voice raised,
angry,
and get angry, then that appears controlling. You get the same message across. The tone of voice can be just as forceful. Like I've been there. I'm one of these. I'm a with my pen on the pad. We don't do that again. That's not how it's going to happen. And I'll be like,
I'm like Paulette. I'm going to shake Paulette by the neck. Stop doing that.
I would, right? And that is what I would be like in the meeting rooms. I'd be like, that's not how we're going to carry on. And somebody said to me, will you put your pen down? And I was like, why? And they're like, driving me
stop doing that.
And I was like, wow, I'm raising your sort of temperature by just doing this.
Yes.
Okay, I'll put the pen down.
Thank you.
It's my finger, right? But the point was, you can just, I'm not doing that in your face. I'm saying, look, come on, guys, we can fix this without all shouting at each other. Let's stop looking for the blame and look for a solution. Let's stop looking for who was responsible and let's look at what we can do to make right. So what Curtis's point is you don't have to be control. All right, if I'm managing director and the buck stops with me, then I'm going to be making sure that if the buck stops with me, that everything gets resolved and gets sorted. But the way I do it, I can also say that I've had people lined up in my office and I have gone hell for leather at them when I found that they've been nicking parcels and they've got two choices to hand the keys over or I call the police. Believe me, there's a different side to me. But the other side of me is like, learn from that. I didn't need to be a school mistress, You don't have to handle it that way.
Right. So let me give you a different angle for that, if that's all right, Paula, right? So again, you and I were talking earlier. We were planning this project of ours. So when I was a consultant, my first job after uni, I had a colleague, same age as me, just finished a degree as well. And so our thing was to write content for managers and leaders, for management development events. See, of course, being a small team, there are essentially three of us in the office, right? So we write and then we review each other's documents and then we'll make corrections, and it gets us nearer to a better document, right? Her thing, this young German woman, she would do everything in big red pen. She would write across your document, she'd print it out, not just suggest changes, she would print it out and write in red pen. It used to jar me so much. Why? Do it in pencil, do it in blue pen. Why do you have to write like a teacher? Who do you think you are? And I think there's something about how some people, it's partly how, is there intent that jars us, I think. That's for me in that situation anyway. No, I think even the washing up thing, I said it's the intent. I know what you're saying when you leave this stuff in the sink. You're saying, Marie, go and wash it up. I'm saying, no, don't go and wash it up. You're not a slave. So that's where the clash happens. Let's talk to a teacher who maintains boundaries every day. Alavina, we do see you, my friend. So glad you're here as well. Have I missed anyone out? Hopefully not. I don't think I have. Linda, I've mentioned you earlier. I don't have. If I've missed you out, please do forgive me. I do apologize. So there's many people here.
Hi, literally many. Hi. So many. So lovely to see you all.
Yes.
Who's come up on screen then? Who's
here? Roxana is here.
Hey.
I'll let you talk to us.
Hi, Paulette. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Annie, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. So when I can stay calm.
When you can stay calm.
I'll start getting the pen out, Annie.
Okay, well, I just want to say just one thing. Boundaries are the same as rules. Teachers must set boundaries in the classroom. We have to set boundaries so that the students or children will know what to expect and what not to expect. When they come in, the first day they come in, there must be rules or boundaries posted on the wall or somewhere visible so that everybody will know what to expect. So there are rules, there are expectations, and the kids need to know that the first day of class, and that's, we don't have to expect them to read what is there. We also need to explain the boundaries. That we have the boundaries on the wall doesn't mean that they saw it or they know what the expectations are. So as a teacher, the first thing we do is to tell them to read the boundary, maybe first or second of class, and keep on explaining what the boundaries mean. One by one, what are the consequences of breaking the rule, each and every one of them, so that they know what to expect. So that is, I think it applies to adults too. If you set boundaries in your home or in your job, wherever you are, people will know what to expect. It's also good to explain it. In this house, we do not curse. We do not throw curse words. In this house, we do not fight. So children will know that when you throw a curse word, you are in trouble. And if you fight, if you try to hit someone, you know you're getting in trouble. In this house, we do not fight. So that's boundaries matter a lot. There are the rules.
So can I ask you a
what to
question?
expect.
Professor Roxana, here's a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
In a relationship, in a marriage or whatever, if somebody oversteps a boundary in such a way, like, for example, the table is set for 7:30, we have to be there, we've booked the restaurant, we're going out, it's a weekly date night or a fortnightly date night, and he's not ready, right? And you're shouting at him because we're going to miss the table, it's really hard to get a table at this restaurant. How would you handle it?
When someone that breaks the boundary is an adult, it's a different situation. That is a different situation. And if it is that's a way to handle someone breaking the boundary, especially if the person is an adult. If it's an adult, maybe it depends on what the person understands. If my husband or your husband that did what is not supposed to do, maybe just a look at him, just a look at him. I don't know about you, but maybe if there's a way he understands.
With me, it's the eye roll. Yeah.
If there's something he understands, you tell him that way. You don't have to be shouting at him if it's somewhere, but maybe just a look like this. Okay, they will understand they did something wrong. I think I can answer that question easily.
So I don't think raised voices between adults is required.
No.
And I also think if you know each other and you know each other like in a long-term relationship or a marriage or whatever, you wouldn't.
If we know each other, we know how to.
We know how to you sort of duck and dive. You work together. You sort of mold into this.
We know how to respond. Annie, you know how to respond to your wife.
Hang on, Annie doesn't agree.
Yeah.
Boundary.
We've been together, God, say what, 35 years. So I'm thinking about those who are either just starting out or haven't had the experience of each other. So I'm thinking in this day and age, I expect cohabiting as part of the course, for example. Dr. Roxana, being Nigerian as well, as same as me, I'm saying deep down, we know Nigerians don't like cohabiting.
Yeah.
Which creates a problem in my eyes, because suddenly, yes, you were dating this person, but you were living separate lives, right? I think it takes you need the time together for someone to understand someone's boundaries. That's my point.
But
No, no. If you suddenly go from 0 to from 10 to 100, when you live together, you're going to find out a lot more about this person and their boundaries. You're going to find out that they squeeze his toothpaste from the bottom up rather than from the top. Right? From the top, from the top, to the bottom. Right?
But when boundaries are too strict, Annie, in my view, when boundaries are too strict, what happens is people start going around the houses, right? So you find a different route. So you start to become secretive, or you start to do things there should be no sex before marriage. Well, okay, there's always the car, right? You can't afford a hotel room. This is what happens, and we know it happens. And the point is this, if the boundary is as strict as it is, and like you said, especially Nigeria, there will be stuff going on, but secretively, right?
Yes.
Because what happens is people look for a way around it. They circumnavigate the boundary, and then when the family find out, they're like furious. But actually, it's almost like Western world thinking living in Nigeria, and that's the problem. We've become that everybody is infiltrating each other's thoughts, countries, habits, and ideas and ideals, and all of a sudden it's causing confusion. And when you have confusion,
I get a feeling Dr. Roxana has a point of view on this part of the conversation, especially because I don't get it. There's nothing wrong to say cohabiting is perfectly fine, because I want you to get to know the person you're going to marry before you actually do marry them. Make sure you have at least some sharing of values, if you want to call it that, right? And not surface level. I mean, even as friends, you need to get on, and right. But I think many Africans have a whole different perspective. Which
and maybe that's where, unfortunately, places like YouTube and, as I said, European, American, wherever, values do get transferred. We don't necessarily get the skill transfer or the thought transfer from Nigeria to here, but we're certainly infiltrating the ideals and the ideas towards Nigeria and Africa. And the problem with that is that it causes a big problem when families go, that's not happening. And they're like, but why not? And it's like, that's going to be a red line. And if it's a hard red line, as Professor Roxana, will tell us, it's going to be an argument in the family,
yes.
And I guess the guy has to marry the girl if he wants to keep her. That's how it works. Right?
Dr. Roxana, are you there? I think there's another question that Dr. Roxana's pointed to.
All right, go. What's the question?
Yeah. How help me understand why Africans, not just Nigerians, are so against cohabiting.
Well,
why is that such a red line? Why is Dad so insulted by his beloved child, whichever, living and with the person they're gonna marry, when we see it as a norm, almost part of the course?
Well, you are talking about why the child, or the African child, or the parents are against their children cohabiting with the person they intend to marry when they are of the age to marry. For some children, you can't hold them. It's actually the training you give the child before it was time to marry that they can keep. If they had already known that it's against the rule to cohabit before they get married, then you set that rule. That's what I said before. if you set the rule at the beginning, it depends on what the beginning is. Then whenever anybody is going to cross the boundary, they will remember, okay, this is the boundary line. I don't want to be punished. But let me tell you, people cohabiting is not just Africa. It's you can see a 40-something-year-old man or woman still living with a boyfriend or girlfriend. I don't know if you can cure that. I don't really know if your boundaries can cure that, because some people may not want to commit. I mean, I don't. Well, some of us are married. I'm married, and Paulette is married. And I know you're married, but I know some of my age mates still living with their boyfriends or girlfriends and even have children. I don't know if I'm the one that will go and say that it's in the Bible. It may not be, it may be against some rules, some countries, but I'm not sure you can stop it. You can only set the boundaries sometimes.
I think what I was saying as well, and I think that the infiltration of YouTube and all the internet and everything that they're seeing that goes on in the Western world over here, it has an effect. It pushes the boundary for other countries, and that not always to the good, but it does push the boundary. And like you say, I don't think that you can always stop it. If the kids are brought up to believe, like if a child is brought up Catholic and they know that they're going to marry a Catholic man, woman, whatever it is, the opposite of, then the answer is this: they won't be looking to marry somebody who's a Protestant or somebody who is a Jew or somebody who is a Muslim, because they've been brought up in a Catholic household that goes to Catholic church, and therefore it would be normal for them to marry a Catholic. I have a family situation where my Auntie Rosie is extremely religious, and her attitude is that you marry who you love. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Never in a month of Sundays would I have expected her to have said. I would have said it would be if you married anybody but a Catholic. Love is more important to her. And that to me showed great heart.
So I just think that boundaries can be there, and people will actually cross the boundary. People will cross the boundary, and sometimes you can help it, especially when sometimes you can help it. I just know there are some boundaries you can set and still may not be able to control that.
So for me, I think that's about as flexible as we can be, right? That is as flexible we can be. Now, put you in the classroom with kids with rules and regulations is very different. Put me in the office with rules and regulations, that's different. Put us on LinkedIn, and if we say something inappropriate, it'll get taken down, and Annie won't get his video made, and it will have been a disappointing evening. The most important part of the boundary of LinkedIn is that we don't say anything inappropriate and we're not supposed to swear. And that's about as far as they say. We can pretty much do anything else we want. Oh, we have to keep our clothes on, I think was quite important. But there was never any chance that was going anywhere. So, the boundaries that are set by LinkedIn are fairly fairly stringent. We know what they are, and we all
I
stick
have
to
to,
them,
I have to
right?
laugh. Please keep your clothes on, everyone. Don't be
Everyone
running
keep
around.
your clothes on. We've got the block button, Ellie, don't worry. But apart from keeping your clothes on, which I know is definitely one of my other, if you like, I think is important. I'm going to bring it up because I like this. I believe there is a sweet spot, I call it. And I don't know if anyone knows what I mean by a sweet spot. A sweet spot is where there's a meeting and it's okay, right? That's the sweet spot. That place in the middle is called my sweet spot. And that's where you can be firm but flexible. So the boundary is there, it's there. 8 o'clock boundary is the 8 o'clock bedtime. The 8:05, the game will be finished. I can be flexible. The boundary was there, but it was pushed just a little bit. As long as it's just a little bit, acceptable. But if you push it any more, then the boundary alarm goes off and the game is turned off. And don't ask me tomorrow, because tomorrow it's going to be 8:05. You'll be going to bed, not 8:05, right? I'll get my 5 minutes back that way. So I was very firm but flexible. And that was my parenting. That was how I parented. I was always flexible, but I was also very firm. My ideas were made clear and not always negotiable. I would say I wasn't always negotiable. Sometimes I could be difficult if I felt I wanted to go to war about something. But generally speaking, my firm and flexible, my emotional intelligence, my maturity, my own personal growth allowed me to be that. A youngster who's just starting out in a relationship, I'm not sure they're going to have those skills. And I think that's why we have so many young marriage breakups, because they don't work at it in the same way that us oldies did, which means they didn't try to be firm but flexible with each other. They didn't have that sweet spot where they met in the middle and said, okay, your red line is here and my red line is there, but let's sort of go in the middle and then we both get our red line, and that to me is a far more flexible way of approaching any situation. And to move on from there, I have you can have too rigid boundaries. You can have too many red lines. And if you do that, you start to create sort of a level of fear within the other person. So it's the control. And then you start to create distance. Then you start to create resentment. Then you start to create rebellion. And then there are very clear consequences to what happens then. It generally ends up with either somebody getting slapped or the relationship ending, or there's trouble. So the point is, it's about learning those red lines. And I think communication is probably the most important thing I'll say today, is talk. Whether you're talking about the boundaries in class, whether you're talking about the rules in class, whether we're talking about the rules and the boundaries in the office, whether we're talking about the rules and the boundaries in a relationship, I think I'm not saying that they aren't there. If you're going to get married, you've almost got rules and boundaries within your vows when you get married. They are kind of boundaries and rules. Thou shalt not do this, thou shalt not do the other. Let's make sure that you're not having an affair within the first week of marriage. This is a relationship between two people. A marriage is between the husband and wife. You're putting this boundary in place. And then when there's extramarital affairs, chaos. A boundary's broken. And I think that is something that is so important. we have boundaries all our lives. We're surrounded with boundaries. But when we manage them in a way where they work for us, not against us, where we work with them and not into a war zone, I think that we can really get over most situations. And I just want to touch, because I always think it is really important, is when we talk about autism or ADHD or ADD or any of the neurodivergent type people that have got these particular disabilities, the boundaries and the rules are very clear and very important. My son liked the rules. He liked to know when, where, how, what. He needed all the boundaries. And as long as he knew where the boundaries were, he was happy. As soon as you took those boundaries away, he was completely and utterly lost. And it wasn't until he changed class that we realized how difficult that transition was going to be for him. To change his teacher from the teacher he really liked, and the classroom that he was his first classroom, and the desk, which was his first ever desk. I got the lot, right down to this was my very first pencil. I mean, it really was to him life. It was traumatic. And I had to break it down to, did you know that you moved house when you were 2.5? And he said, no. I said, see, I'm just letting you know that you handled that one okay. And he burst out laughing and he said, because I didn't know about it. I said, but it showed you handled it. And I said, you had a new bedroom. We painted it the same colour. We put the same curtains up. You had the same Thomas the Tank Engine bed. We made it as much as similar as we could. And there was an ensuite bathroom to his room, and we put his ball pit in front of it. He didn't know he had an ensuite bathroom until he was 5. He thought we magically had built it for him. But the point was, we just blocked it off so that he just didn't go in there. But the point of this story is that he needed boundaries to live. At school, the rigid boundaries, that sort of the way that the school system worked for him was perfect. There was timetable and he knew where he had to be, at what classroom, at what time, He went to university, no boundaries, 0 boundaries. Here's a list of your course lectures you should go to if you want to. What do you mean if I want to? Well, if you don't want to go, you can watch it on replay. They give it to you on you can just go to a certain place on the system and you can watch the lectures. So Ben was like, so do you mean you don't have to go? Well, some might not go, but you can go. He didn't miss a lecture year 1, not a lecture. Half his class weren't there because
I think,
to go.
Paulette, I think there should be violations. There should be consequences for repeated violations. The reason why people keep on repeating violations is they haven't been given the consequences. So I think there should be consequences for repeated violation of breaking boundaries or doing it over and over again. Because that's at the beginning, there should be, first of all, respectful communication of what the boundaries are. That communication it can go either way. It can be, the person can contribute, say they know, they also say it. If you do this, then what will happen? And then if they repeat it for the first time, second time, there should be consequences for repeated violations. Suppose you bought something, there are policy violations. I mean, privacy of companies. They don't have to um, repeat violations there. They can give you the consequences. Okay, some support without manipulations. Things like honoring your time and availability. So stuff like that. We have to set boundaries. We know we are human, but still we should make sure that we don't allow people to repeat violations without consequences. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no,
Otherwise,
I love that. I love
you
that.
understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Because
absolutely. And I'll tell you that year 2, they are a little stricter. Year 1 seemed to be like a bit of a DOS, if I'm honest. They they just come and go as they pleased. That doesn't work for Ben. Ben needs structure. That's how Ben works. Ben operates
exactly.
because of his autism. He works in a structured environment. So to him, not going is like, that would make him bad. That would make him break a rule, right? So for him, he couldn't handle it. This complete freelancing was terrifying. We managed. He managed to work through it. He attended every lecture. When he was ill, he watched 2 lectures on catch up, and then he wrote an apology email to the. I know. He wrote an apology email to the professor as to why he wasn't there, that he'd got COVID and he wasn't going to come to class. And the bless the professor wrote back to him and said, "This is the first apology I've had this year." So it was
Well,
almost
at
like
least,
shocking, right? But that was how he's been brought up. That is what you would do. You would apologize for not turning up. He then come to master's year. So this year he's been working in the labs, in the wet labs, and he's there from 10 till 4 every day. And the part of it, I think it's 10 till 5 actually, 10 till 5, because he said it's like an actual job. I'm actually have to be there at 10 and I'm there all day until 5 o'clock. And we were like, yeah, welcome to the real world, Ben. When you go to work, it's going to be 9 till 5, if not 8:30, or it might even be to 6. So, think this, you're still lucky. You're still doing okay, pal. 10 till 5 still good. And most days they let them off about 4ish because they've done the work. But the point is, it's teaching him about this whole, you turn up, you do a day shift, and then you go home. And he hasn't missed a day. And I'm so proud of that fact. And he's so determined to get 100%, that his attendance has been 100%. Please goodness, touch wood, he won't be ill. And he managed to achieve that. But he said, there are people that aren't turning up, Mum. And I said, well, not everybody, is like you, and not everybody wants to do the rules, sticking to the rules. Don't be having a go at them. They might be ill or whatever. He said, no, they had a hangover. I'm like, well, if they had a hangover, I just hope it's just the once. I said, are they on your team? Did it affect you at all? He said, no. I said, then why are you bothered? Well, I'm just letting you know. And I'm like, well, telltales never get anywhere. And he's like, laughs at me. We make jokes with him now because he's still and always will be the rule abider. He's always going to play it by the rules because by nature, that is who he is. And that, I'm not being critical. I'm not being insensitive. That is his autistic tendency, is to be a rule abider. And that is great from his academics. He doesn't like injustices. And I've told stories many a time where he's got himself in trouble by, telling people that, things are, perhaps he shouldn't have been the one that told on the other child. And then when they said, oh, somebody might have informed us, Ben put his hand up and said, oh, that was me. And it was like, oh gosh, you know, if you're going to be the one that tells, don't have to admit it was you. But the point is, it's about the rules. You don't do this and you don't do that.
The
And if you
standard,
do,
which said, yeah, the standard about what's acceptable.
absolutely,
Yeah, about what
absolutely,
is acceptable and what is not. But
absolutely. And
sometimes you get people breaking the rule over and over again. But when they do the first time or second time, there should be some kind of consequence or
yes, I
consequences.
agree.
And so
Yeah.
that when they break the rule the first time, they're warned. Second time, then some kind of consequence or consequences has to go. Um, we do, like talking about coming late or not. If you come late to class about 15 minutes, then you are marked absent. So, but sometimes it doesn't. People come late and they have a reason for coming late. Maybe the same child, and the reason may be genuine. That's the human aspect, the human loop. If it is AI that is marking the attendance, the human loop will go back and take the excuse and give the boy present because probably it was seen by the doctor, or his car broke down on the way for some reasons. But if there is no other reason except the person was disobedient, I think the consequences should follow, because we cannot just go about breaking boundaries. But it depends on what it is. At the beginning,
But you
someone
see, you can take it even further than that, Dr. Rosanna, Professor Rosanna, rather. If we don't teach children and we don't set ourselves boundaries, we don't set ourselves standards that are high enough, we don't hold ourselves to high account, our children could end up in prison because they
yeah,
don't understand the rules.
yes, and then
And
they blame the parents when they end up in.
of course,
They get
because
in trouble.
you
Then it
didn't bring
becomes.
me up properly, or you didn't do this, or you didn't do that. But ultimately, that is something that could happen if they don't understand boundaries and rules. And we have to hold ourselves to account too. We
Yeah,
have to have those boundaries at home for ourselves. You know, like I said, I don't like shouting. I don't like raised voices. So we don't often have raised voices. Maybe occasionally, but very, very rarely. And if Ben gets about something, and it has happened over the years, we have to just calm down. Let's just talk about this in a calm manner. Go wash your face, do your teeth, come down again, and we'll start again. Cool your face down, just chill out a minute and come down, and we'll talk about it then. We can't talk to you while you're in this state. And I believe that is the same in a row, in an argument. I've said before now, look, we're not agreeing, so let me just walk away, and then I'll come back and we'll have the conversation. But I need to cool down. I need to just like take a minute, get a coffee and just chill a minute, and then I'll come back. And it might be over something really minuscule, like you and your dirty plates, Lenny. Or it might be something like, you know, the dog and the white carpet and dirty footprints, you know. It could be anything. But sometimes when you're having a hard day, I'm in pain, stuff's going wrong, your tolerance level is less. And your
yes,
ability to manage your own emotions becomes harder. And
yes,
as a consequence, things get said that you regret. And if you've got regrets, we know that what regrets means. Regrets generally means we've upset somebody. And it's up to the other person to be adult enough and willing enough to see that you've had a really bad day, you're in pain, and please understand what I said I didn't mean. And I apologize. And I've had to do that. I'll admit it. I've had to do that more than once. and especially when I've been in a lot of trouble with pain. But what I would actually like to kind of come to a summation on is, if we all treated each other, I know I say it all the time and it probably makes you vomit, but if we all treated each other with a kindness and were pleasant to each other, and we respected each other, regardless of religion, regardless of creed, regardless of color, regardless of anything, we give everybody equal footing, and we're just pleasant and kind and nice, what a wonderful world we could live in.
It's going to be.
Right?
Yeah.
And the only way that's going to happen is if we set the example. It starts with us. Children are not born racist. Babies are not born homophobic. Babies are not born violent, aggressive criminals. They're not generally drug addicts. Can I
come in there, Paulette?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. You see, as adults or maybe parents, we don't only set the rules. We have to, children learn by not only doing what you said. They learn observing what you do. They learn from experience. They learn looking at you. And so when we set the boundaries, we have to be sure to actually obey the rule ourselves. And so that it's not just what we say, it's what we do. If we set the boundary, like if you have teenagers and you tell them, okay, the latest you can stay out before I lock the door, you can't come in, it's 10 p.m. And you, an adult, unless you went to work, unless it is work, and you, an adult, keep coming home by maybe 12 midnight, unless it is work. So what I'm trying to say is, when we set the boundaries, we have to make sure we are also obeying, keeping our words too, and then making sure there are consequences for not breaking the rules. And there are rules like you said about our children living together before they get married. I can say that one, you cannot keep that boundary. You can, if you said that, even though it's in the Bible, everything in the Bible, people don't do them. And so, but we want to make sure we limit, we make sure that we actually have consequences, and maybe communicate with, even if it's only the consequences of communicating. If somebody crosses a boundary, one thing is tell them. Somebody has to let them know, okay, you just crossed the boundary. Do you remember? That's it. Sometimes that's enough.
Yes.
Sometimes that's enough, because you don't have to whip the person for crossing a boundary, but an adult or someone who knows what to do will actually not do it again after you have discussed it with them.
Absolutely. And I think that that's all about this whole respect. If you respect each other, you also respect the boundary. And I think that as long as you don't, that the one, being resentful and feeling like somehow you've been wronged, then that starts to leave a bit of a sour taste. That means you start to look at things slightly differently, and you might nitpick and start being a bit angry about things. Far better to say at the time, look, I wasn't happy when you did that, just so you're aware. It really upset me. You left 3 plates in the sink. They were all filthy dirty, and I'm not happy with you. And the son goes, oh, Dad's lost it, and then he'll wash up, right? And then he might do it again, but he might not. But if he sees that you're hurt about it, and you're angry about it, and you've crossed the line, then that's when you start to say, oi, you had your warning, now there's no pocket money. End of. No discussion. That's my red
Okay.
line. You know it's my red line.
Mhm.
Consequence. And that's where you can do that. Now, in a relationship, that's harder. You can't stop the other one's pocket money. But what you can do is not make them their favorite meal. And if you make them something that you know that they'll eat it, but they won't actually like it very much, well, that's what I've done. And I've certainly huffed about quite a bit. And I've, you know, made a few like grunt noises instead of actually speaking. And I've acted in a very immature manner. But I've got my point across, right? I was not happy about that. And it was dealt with. Now, if Charles was to flounce about and get all grumpy with me, everybody would know, because everybody knows Charles is the most laid back person on the planet, right? But there are times when I get a look, and that's all I need. And I think, oh no, I'm in trouble now. I know I'm in trouble. I've got the look, right? That's all I need.
Yeah,
Because
the look.
Why haven't I got that look? And I need to go. I have another room that starts now.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
listen, let's summate. If you got comments you want to read out quick.
So the biggest one, I guess. No, there's Bobby Lee Clark. Bobby Lee Clark, I have to welcome. I can't see him on here. And who else I have to welcome? There are a couple more people I saw on the LinkedIn page. But I'm trying to get to it. If I can find it. Which I can't. Surprise.
Listen, if you've got to go, you've got to go, my lovely. Listen,
Ilana is here as well. Miss Banana. Did I mention her earlier?
Alana Banana came in, yes. She said, don't say I'm here. Just...
Oh, and there's one from Linda. A question for you to think about. Maybe go in the comments and respond. It said, have you seen instances where boundaries defined by an elder, yes, the elder doesn't respect the boundary they defined?
That's exactly what I was saying before.
Yes, I think that's an important. You can't have a boundary that you don't keep yourself.
No.
And a lot of people do. A lot of people, they're confused.
Don't do as I do. Do as I say.
Something like
that.
Yeah,
do as I say doesn't work.
To say.
Do as I say does not work. Yeah, but I can tell you that most boundaries, some of us find it difficult to keep the boundaries we set. In some situations, if it's an adult that goes against the boundary, that's really a little you can do. You don't start fighting. You can just talk to the adult the way he or she will understand. But that's it. That's it. You talk to the adult the way he or she will understand.
Absolutely. Always communication. Always is the answer.
Communication.
Absolutely.
It's communication.
I know you have to go, my lovely. You wind the room up as you always do.
I do.
Have you enjoyed tonight's session?
Yes, always, Paulette. Interesting conversation. It feels like it hasn't ended yet. So I don't know whether you're going to bring another variation to the children's anxieties room next time.
I actually have a complete room to set, and it's all about neurodivergence, which I think will be very interesting. So that's what we'll be talking about the next children's anxieties, which will be the neurodivergent boundary, because it's a very different one for them than it is for others, and can be very difficult for kids that can't sit still. Very difficult. So it's a very interesting topic. So we'll deal with that.
I'm always accused of looking like I'm frozen, which I find really interesting. When I stand up,
every now and again.
I move around a lot. When I sit down,
up like this. Give us a little
really
finger wave.
I'm not really here.
There you go. Yeah. He's real.
Thank you, Doc.
It's not a picture.
Anna.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Do connect.
Thank you, my lovely.
I'm sure Paulette's going to come and respond to the comments in good time, right?
For sure, I will.
But,
Absolutely.
we're back here again in a couple of weeks' time, same place,
Okay.
different topic, I'm sure. But thank you
All
so much,
right.
everyone. And thank you,
See
Paulette.
you
you.
next time.
Take
Bye.
care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
bye, 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 everyone. Bye, everyone.
Yeah, bye.
She retrained her heart to heal the young, turned her passion into purpose, work begun. Co-author of a movement, not-for-profits game, teaching kids that self-belief can ease the pain. Every child deserves to face their fears with measured thinking, not